my friends. Happy Monday. We are back for another week of art making. I had spring break last week, so that is why we kind of skipped last week, but I am ready for us to do a little painting. It'll just be me today, but we're going to do something kind of simple with a little bit of ink, water, paper, maybe a paper towel. We're good, right? So we're keeping it pretty basic, but sometimes it's nice just to have an excuse to get those materials out and get in the zone a little bit. So as your friendly reminder, we are creating today to spark that creative spirit in ourselves and really try to give ourselves this routine time for us to be creative and make something, even though a lot of us are educators and we don't often take that time for ourselves. So my name is Sarah Krajewski. I am your host, and we are going to also give you a friendly reminder about posting after the fact if you want to get your hands on, my stickers are way over there. But if you want to get your hands on one of our holographic stickers, you can totally post after this and then share what you created with us. So, is this obvious that it was a Monday? Like, literally, I washed my hands, I promise. But I was like, hey. And not gonna lie, had kind of a rough day. So my technique was give me the biggest earrings possible and just like make me feel powerful. It's good. So we are gonna get started. All you need is a little bit of thick paper. We're gonna do like a version of this little guy. So we're gonna work on some kind of lighter value a little bit, some darker spaces, a little bit of outlining, some line weight, and just have fun doing a little bit of painting. Now, you might notice I am in a different space. This is my downstairs studio because I moved it from upstairs. So if for some reason you can't like hear me or anything, just drop that into the chat and I will make sure that I get all my tech stuff figured out. But I think we're okay, right? Yes, you can relate to the hands. It's like, what is this? It looks like a giant bruise. It's not. I think it's ink. Who could say? All right, so speaking of ink, here are the things that you need. I'm gonna downturn the camera in just a second. I'm gonna just use some thick watercolor paper. It's my favorite stuff to paint on. Grab a water cup. I always love having these like little mason jar pint glasses. I use them for like drinking water at home, but also for painting. Yes, be careful, don't get them confused. A little bit of ink of whatever variety. If you don't have ink, you can just use like black paint, water it down a little bit, or use any of your favorite watercolors if you want to switch to that. I'm using like a little paint palette filled with my ink so I can make a couple versions of some of my like lighter washes, and then just a variety of brushes. So we're just gonna do some simple painting today. So let's get started. All right, here we go. Ciao. The most smooth transition you've ever seen. All right, y'all, let me just, okay, I gotta play with this. This is my new setup here. Okay, so I'm gonna move some of my painting things a little bit out of frame so y'all can see more, there we go, like this kind of vibe. Now, when I'm gonna start painting something that's got a lot of variety on it as far as like lights and darks and all of these other little spots, I'm gonna start with my lighter things and kind of like build from back to front. So if you're painting along with us today, go ahead and grab maybe one of like your bigger or medium brushes if you have a variety, and then start making like a little bit of a lighter wash. So I kind of get like a little bit of water going and then just kind of dip that ink up in there and get some like really light, soft, whispery washes. Okay. I'm going to start with this like eucalyptus looking vibe right here, as well as maybe doing a few kind of like background layers of some of these thicker leaves. But again, if you have a leaf in mind, or if you have even a slightly different direction you want to go, take it away. Okay, so we're gonna do a couple of these beautiful little eucalyptus friends, just kind of like a smaller, soft oval. And actually today I was doing some painting with my third graders and was trying to remind them about the fact that you can start watercolor with just water. So like using that as almost a map of where you want your color to go. So just using water and then dropping in that color is that little tricky wet on wet technique that I love to use. So we're gonna do, ooh, that guy's real light. We're gonna do just another little oval. Get this guy going. Sweet. Okay, let's do, you know, I kind of, since I've got like a rectangular paper today, I think I might do like a little more repetition of some materials. Like this one is all, like I said, this is one that I did just a couple days ago, but this one is all different kinds of little leafy bits, and I'm gonna just switch it up and do a little bit of repeated designs too. So feel free to get get loose with it, have fun with it, and just be creating along with me. Now, this stuff is gonna dry pretty fast. So I've got this kind of like super light value here. And I like it because the thing about watercolor is sometimes that water sort of settles on the edge of your design. So something like this one has this like really kind of like natural dark edge, which gives it this really cool sort of inherent outline. So let's let those dry for a little bit. And now I'm gonna do some leafy franz. So a little bit of mix of my light again. By the time that dries, we'll be ready to add some more. Okay, so I've got my lighter one again too. Now I'm gonna do a little bit of this more kind of like Sumi style brush stroke painting technique where we've got sort of that thin line and then thick and pull up at the end. I know this is used in calligraphy and a lot of different kinds of painting styles, but go ahead and just practice either on like a paper towel or a paper next to you, or if you want to just start on your own, you're gonna do like a skinny line, push down for that thick part of your brush, and then just pull up a little bit at the end. Okay, again, skinny line, push down, and then pull up. So your brush is just going boop, and it's kind of like as if the paper weren't there, you'd be making this hole in your paper. It's like squish, and then come up. So I'm gonna do kind of like the furnish, a little ferny friend, little line. And since that water is settling in different spaces, it's gonna give me these different values as I paint with kind of like a light line. Woo, I like it. Okay, light wiggle up. So I'm doing sort of like it's like a palm. I honestly, tell me if anybody else can relate to this, but I know so many plants and I know so many kinds of plants, but I can never like remember all of them at the time that I'm making them. I'm like, yes, that's probably eucalyptus. This is probably some type of like fern, but you know, sometimes you gotta just make it and love it and leave it alone. All right, so I've got that little leafy friend. Oh, I kind of like the variety of the lights and darks. I'm gonna do another big one over here. Do a little repetition. Okay, so give it a little twist. And notice I did my center line at the end because I kind of wanted that center line to pick up the watercolor and just bleed it in just a tiny bit. Now, if I started with that center line, I'm feeling like that point that I start with would be a little less sharp. So you kind of play with like what you're going for as you paint. This guy's kind of like molding together and we're gonna just let it happen. This is what the brush wants to do, friends. This is gonna be how it is. All right. Okay, so we're doing just that little light, sort of like gentle little line and push, gentle line and push. Now I kind of think I want my second leaf to be a little bit bigger than the other one. So I gotta force it. Go, come on, friend. There we go. Okay, cool. Does anybody else use sound effects in your classroom too, right? This isn't just me. All right, so we've got a couple little leafies that are those smaller ones. We're just doing like all of these lighter values first to kind of like set everything down. Now, on my original one here that I did as a little practice, I did some of these like without any filled in spaces just at the end, which you're obviously welcome to do. I'm kind of digging the vibe of like some of these spaces really sort of that light value underneath. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a few more with that light value and just add a tiny bit of that ink, really kind of just to keep it light and sort of like a background, a little bit of a whisper. And then I can go back in and fill it in. So I'm gonna do, I feel like this spot needs like a big wiggle leaf. Can you all see that? I went like totally off the page. Yeah. Paint this bad boy in. A little bit of wet on wet action up in here. I feel very like this is calming today. Friends, do we agree? Just like painting automatically makes you feel better. Just like makes me happy. Especially like a nice watercolor paper with a skinny little brush, simple materials. Can't go wrong. Okay, I'm gonna do a little, yes, do a little black line in there, get a little bit of that wet on wet action before it starts to dry too much. Woo, baby. Okay, here we go. Next, I want another one. Oh boy, this is getting a little bit full up in here. Okay, let's go this way. Okay, So I'm just kind of like mapping out a few things. And like I said before, obviously have fun with the composition. The whole point of this art making time for us together is for you to just grab your art tools and feel like you have a time where you can come together, be a part of this community, and just kind of create as a group, so that you're not feeling like you're like, oh, what am I even doing? What do I want to work on today? What do I feel like I want to create? It's like, just come along and do what we're doing. So it's as easy as that. Watch out. Okay, I mean, that's intense, but I like it. So again, I just dipped into my black ink and did like this kind of stroke across the end and sort of pulled together all of my ink at the end. This got a little crazy. This is getting a little crazy. We're gonna just like, it's fine. Okay, here we go. Next, after you've got that, so like the parts that I started with here, that eucalyptus, those kind of like little money plant, what am I thinking of? Silver, help me out, people. Silver plants, is that a thing where they have those little coins? I don't know. I can't remember. It's Monday. Like, you saw my hands, y'all. You know what kind of state of mind my brain is in today. But this is already starting to dry. So now I just need to get that little medium tone or that kind of darker tone filled in. So I'm going to just scoop a little bit more of that ink, dot it into the color that I already had. And then you're essentially using your water as your lightener, right? Because we're really just trying to fill in values with the light and the dark. So we're trying to keep it pretty simple here too. So I'm going to go back to where I was. This guy might be a little bit dark, but it might be okay. I can even just go back in with just water and kind of try to pull. I actually had a student today when I was working kind of freaking out because they were doing this watercolor thing, and like he had painted somewhere he didn't want to, and he wanted the color, but he was like, oh, it's just so dark. And it's like, you know, once you're working in a small space, you kind of get a little bit stuck. So I showed him that little trick, like, all right, dip it in the water, get your clean brush, take your brush, and then just like squeeze out those water droplets so there's nothing left. It's just on your fingers, and then you're gonna go back in and just like kind of like soak up the paint a little bit. Just takes away a little bit of that puddle that's happening. If you're not liking it, really just pull that paint super dry and then soak it up. Now, it doesn't take everything away. So for example, like these up here are pretty dark still, but for, you know, school watercolors, it really did like soak up probably 80% of it. And then he wasn't feeling quite so overwhelmed with his creation being like totally different than what he was envisioning. So that was a really helpful little trick. All right, so I'm kind of overlapping these little doodads, a little more circle friends. Ooh, and I kind of love how this sort of like comes together. It's doing this little bleed, but if you're not wanting that to happen, just make sure your previous layer is dry. Or, oh my gosh, like honestly, y'all, can we just talk about this space? Like, I want to just leave this. It just looks so pretty. But yeah, if you're not wanting to do that, just make sure your top layer is dry a little bit, or just leave a little bit of space so you're not getting that bleeding between two of your spaces there. All right, so I'm working with this mid-tone a little bit more. I'm gonna come back in, do some of my eucalyptus, but drop into the chat if you want to tell me any other plants or leaves we should try, or which ones you are working on. I'm doing kind of these palms, these little eucalyptus, and then more of just a classic kind of little wavy leaf. It might be a long pothos, perhaps. I don't know exactly, but we're just making some little leafy things. Now, with spring kind of around the corner, we're trying to focus, especially right now, on the celebration of the seasons changing and getting outside. So I don't know about y'all, but in Wisconsin, it is not nice. It's like fine, but it's like gray. It's just been very gray, which is ironic that we're using gray today to paint. But I feel like trying to make nature and make something that feels beautiful can sort of pull you out of that rut when spring doesn't feel so springy. Like, I like spring because I like the changing of the seasons, but I gotta admit, it's not always like the coolest. It's kind of, you know, it's like hit or miss. Sometimes it's not so nice. All right, so we're gonna do a skinny line. Actually, I'm gonna grab my little itty-bitty brush and get this kind of prepped for a little skinny line here. So I'm gonna come back, do a little tap of my brush, and kind of use my pinky as a little bit of like a, what's my word? Like a little tripod, right? Kind of hold where I'm gonna touch along my paper, and then just kind of come through. I'm gonna like connect this little guy up here and see if you can give your creations just a little bit more of a connection point. Now, since I'm working on this live, there's probably some spaces I would wait a little bit more for, but for the sake of the project today and what we're working on, it's totally okay to just kind of go for it and see what happens. And then you're getting these beautiful things like how my lines are really coming together and they're creating this new space. Kind of getting this new little design going on. Okay, I'm fine with you. You good? Now, I technically still haven't used just the black ink out of the bottle because I'm feeling like it's going to be like pretty intense with how light I'm doing all of these little parts on my painting today. But you can definitely play with it, or it might be a really fun way to experiment with some of that outlining, like how I did some of my paintings here just with that plain black. And you can really just do this entire project just with black and like get in the zone and start doing like I just did, and start doing some of the painting just with black and see if you like it that as, instead of using marker, like do you like using these tools in a different kind of way. Okay, sweet. Okay, we got some little stemmy stems on there. It's like really giving this almost like sun print illusion a little bit too. I don't know, it's working for me. Okay, cool. I'm gonna keep going with that medium tone. So I'm really just building back to front. And I've switched up the brush a little bit, so we'll see if it changes what kind of line quality I'm getting. In fact, I'm gonna do a little bit of the black, and y'all can tell me what you think. But I'm doing like this pretty dark black from my ink bottle, doing that skinny little line, and then coming back in and going similarly over the top of my leaves, but not exactly. So it has this illusion of like a layer kind of behind and then a layer in front. It's like sort of makes your eye just rest on a space a little bit because you're not just stuck watching one layer. So I'm enjoying it. And again, there's something like very meditative and relaxing. Usually I wouldn't be talking this much when I was painting myself by myself, but there's something very meditative about this sort of like leafy quality where you're doing that skinny line and a push and then a pull and a lift. It's just always been a really fun way to get those little leaves and try to challenge yourself to have a little bit more brush control as well. Yes. And even if they get wiggly, like we all have those students that are like, oh no, my leaf isn't straight. It's like, oh, guess what? It's a leaf. It doesn't have to be straight. It's fine. Okay, so we're gonna fill this little guy in and get those black little leafies on top. I don't know, I'm liking it. I feel good about it. What do y'all think? Should I do these little, like, just the black ones for this one? I feel like maybe no. Maybe just skip it and let it be its own little vibe. But we're going to get those little black lines in there and then let it be. Now, I have technically, if we're talking about using something like this within the classroom, I have done some Sumi ink projects with students even as low as 2nd grade. There are different versions of Sumi ink that you can use, and that's not necessarily exactly what we're doing today. We're just playing with some ink and doing a little bit of outdoor nature painting to help celebrate that coming of spring. But as a friendly reminder, really be focused on the washability of your ink if you're doing it with students. So you can absolutely use something that may not be washable, but kind of being mindful of what that looks like in the classroom. And then I also tended to kind of water down the ink a bit as well. Just for budget reasons, it helps it last longer, and that color is so concentrated. I feel like it really looked so similar with how our students were painting without needing to have that fresh out of the bottle concentrated ink. So something to consider if you're planning on doing something like this with the students. And you can really give them a challenge on like, can they make this, like literally this leaf that I'm making right now is such a fun challenge on their own, is like skinny, chunky, skinny. Like, is that something that your brush and your motor skills can handle? So that's a really good challenge as well. Okay, let's do one more down here. Okay, I like it. Okay, so last little spots that I've got on here, I've got my little, like these little leafy guys, which is pretty dry since I did that more wash. It's kind of like a little wiggly pea pod situation, but I did a wash in this one and then kind of that wet on wet line in the middle. So again, I'm gonna grab this little ink marker or my skinny little brush and just give it a couple more little lines from the inside. So kind of going over that line, give it that nice straight or sharper edge. And then this is like, again, usually I wouldn't be like talking so much, but these like skinny little ink lines. It's like, I always find that when you're trying to use ink as paint, people who don't typically do a lot of art making or painting, I always tell them like paint a little quicker than you'd think. Because if you're trying to like make this perfect line and you're just like, like wiggling, it's gonna look shaky, right? But if you go with a little bit more confidence and just kind of get after it and make it happen, then you'll have a little bit more confidence to your line because it's not quite so shaky. So sometimes speed can change the way that your lines look. So again, I'm kind of outlining a little bit here, just giving like a little bit more interest to this. Let me try not to spill all of my ink all over the places. Trying to get a little bit more interest to that little line right there. And then I'm gonna drop in and do that same thing to this little baby guy right here, burp, right there. And I've got like these drops on here. I'm trying to decide if I should just like, should I turn them into something? Y'all help me decide. I don't know. My decision brain is like done for the day. Out of office. My creative brain is on and that's all I can handle. So I'm like, yeah, just make this stuff. It's good. Got your big earrings on and you're good now, right? Okay, so skinny lines, quick. That helps with that confidence of that line. And then even playing with that line weight a little bit too, kind of on and off the edge is gonna help me have a little bit more of interest as I look at this piece. Okay, so I like it, but I do feel like I'm kind of like missing something up here. Y'all, what do you think? And I'm thinking now that it's this late in the game, I think I'm gonna add a couple of those darker lines since I did to these two. Go back with like that black and just really add some super dark circles for my eucalyptus that I added at the beginning. I don't know if I should be calling it eucalyptus. Is it something different? This doesn't feel like seeded eucalyptus has these oval leaves, but this isn't seeded, S-E-E-D-E-D. You know what, y'all? We're just gonna go with it, and it's gonna be good. Sweet. All right, so some of those little darker lines, and again, kind of picking up where I have already painted, so it might pull in some of those little, like this little guy here that's sort of pulling those lines together, giving me a little bit more of that wet on wet action. It's like constantly in motion, this painting, constantly changing. Okay, oh yeah, I like that black. That's good. I'm gonna do it down here to this little friend. Hey buddy, do you want some darker little leaves? Sweet. Okay, let's get a couple of these little dark spots filled in. Add some of those little leafy lines, these little stems. Yes, we're good. Yeah, dude. Okay, so I think I'm gonna fill in just a little bit here on the top possibly, but let me just show you a couple tricks too, just because this is sort of my little play for today. If you wanted to try just doing some line weight practice just with the brush itself, this is a fun way, not have to worry about that really light value and then pull it up towards, like most of these have multiple layers of colors on them. But you could just go back in and sort of use your paintbrush as if it were a marker. Like pretend this was a Sharpie or a drawing tool and I've got ink in it, and I've got my little brush, and I'm gonna just practice what kind of line weight and things I can do with my brush. So I'm like, all right, let me get a little skinny, let me get a little thick line here. Let me see if I can pull like these little wiggly edges to the side. And just kind of like, I don't know, there's something so wonderful about ink on a brush that's different than paint because it just sort of glides and follows you and it's very meditative. And I find it like super nice as I'm talking about how nice it is. And then I've got like a big old blotch at the end. But it's really nice to just kind of play with a brush and ink instead of a marker or a drawing tool. It's gonna give you similar kinds of lines and designs, but kind of in your own way. Okay, I like those long ones. What else? Y'all, now I need something here. Help me decide. Ooh, oh yeah, these little like berries. What do we think about the berries? Okay, can't make decisions for myself. Let's go like this. Okay, so So we got that like center line a little bit, and I'm just going back in with just my brush, like seeing just how skinny I can get that line and like really trying to tiptoe. It takes a bit of practice. It's like, you know, it's not perfect, but it's very meditative. I'm like inches away from, do you see this? I don't think you can see my face, but I'm like literally like, let me paint. It's good. Okay. Yeah, I like this one. Boop. Cute. Okay, now I can't just have one. This isn't gonna work. So we need another little guy up here. Okay, come in this way. Sweet. Yeah, those little tiny tiptoes. So just a friendly reminder for you, if you're ever kind of stuck about what materials you want to use and you're like, oh man, I don't really know, I don't really want to draw today, I don't know. You're just going to grab your ink and get back to it and sort of feel like, well, if I was just painting or if I was drawing, but with ink instead, what would that feel like, right? Let me see if I can do another little guy in here. Know that I'm like trapped in between all these little flowers. Come on, buddy. Amazing. Love it. Cool. If you want to put your name on it, give it a little signature. And then if you did decide to paint along with us today, please feel free to share what you have created. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera up again. Hello. Okay, we did it. So this is one that I had created before. It's got these sort of lighter values and then has some darker places on top. This is mostly dry, so I can hold it up for you. But feel free to just have fun with it and really see what your brush can do, what your brain can do, and get after it so that you can enjoy that creative spirit that you've got tucked inside of you and sometimes forgotten about. Friendly reminder, if you're having an off day and you're an earring person, stick on your earrings. Otherwise, remember that everything is impermanent and whatever you're feeling is not going to be there forever. So just try to like breathe through it. This is what I was telling myself today and reaching out for help about, was saying like, help, I need reminders that it's okay. And it's just like, yeah, it's okay. You can just kind of go through like the survival parts of what you need to do so that you can get to a point where you can have a little bit more of that energy again. So keep that in mind. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you next week, Monday, with another Make Art. And if you did create something, tag the Art of Ed, tag me at Art Room Glitter Fairy so I can check out what you created, and we'll see you next week. Toodaloo, friends!